Our
No, let's just not talk about that. Let's just make sure that we have um
Hi, we're about to
no, just let me check,
stream
please.
Gilmore Gang to Facebook. Can we get a check on Facebook? Anybody?
Yeah, we're live on Facebook.
Okay.
We
Tim, can anybody tell?
we're live on Twitter, X.
Brent, LinkedIn?
Getting ready to check.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And yes, you are live.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, we're about to start the Gilmore Gang on this lovely Super Bowl Sunday.
Lovely.
Lovely,
Meh.
lovely. Okay. All right, mute is off. Oops, I gotta put the light on here. I just said mute is off. Oh. what
Yeah,
did I
you
do?
did.
What did I do?
The way you do it is to say
No.
it is off,
No, but the
a
balloons.
beat,
the
and
balloon-
then the rest of it.
the
So could you
balloons went off.
take 3?
Mute is off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gilmore here. This is the Gilmore Gang. Welcome to my extreme right, Tina Chase Gilmore.
hi everybody. Welcome to the pre-bowl show. of the
Pre-bowl.
Gilmore Gang. Everyone get your bets in and root for the right team.
Welcome to from Palo Alto, California, and we're not getting into your comments about what's that guy's name?
Carlson Tucker.
Tucker Carlson. Yes,
Oh,
we will get into that at a point of my choosing.
hard pass.
Exactly.
Well,
Typically the comment that he's a smart person. No, absolutely not. Totally disagree. And welcome, Keith Tier.
Well, it's good to feel welcome. Very good. And I mean, what would Sunday be without a gnarly Steve Gilmore?
Gnarly.
By the way, I've got this weirdo who's emailing me after the show saying that I'm kissing your ass too much. So this is my
I totally agree with that.
So you're telling us Elon does watch the show. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. But I just do want to say that at 8:30 this morning, Manchester United played away at Aston Villa and won, which is the team above them, which is good omens for the 49ers. My teams are going to win today.
All right.
Well, I'm voting for the other guys.
You're voting
Yeah,
to use my parlance.
yeah. In the pop-up museum, I'm not in favor of San Francisco 49ers.
You just lived there for 20 plus
I
years.
still live there, but I don't. I want the other guy, the Taylor Swift guy.
Yeah.
So my kids went to school with Steve Young's kids and also Harris Barton's kids at elementary school mainly. And so I got brainwashed with the 49ers from the time my kids were 5 years old.
Well, I haven't had that problem. So let's move to welcoming from the framework of Massachusetts, Dennis Pombriant.
Greetings, everyone. Hi, Steve. Hi, Tina. I had a green bowl for lunch, so I figure out, my bowl is covered.
Green Bowl.
Grain,
Oh.
Rainbow.
grain.
Okay, well, we've got another 4 hours of this to go before kickoff.
Not of this. Not 4 hours.
No, please.
Well, there's the interval of time between right now and then. Okay, from the state of the British Isles is Frank Radis.
Hello, gang. Steve, Tina, Keith, Brent, Dennis, cats, dogs. Oh, here in the UK, my family, it's me and my wife, uh, are on opposite sides of the field. I am rooting for the Chiefs. She is rooting for the 49ers. And we'll see how bad it hurts when she loses.
Mm.
Oh,
Now,
Well,
for
I think
me
that-
though, I have to wait until either I watch the replay tomorrow morning when I get up, or I wake up at 1 o'clock to start watching it, or wake up around 2 o'clock to see the halftime show. I don't know.
So one thing's guaranteed, Frank, the 49ers will be either 2 or 3 touchdowns down at halftime.
Okay then.
You don't want to do that against Kansas City.
Okay then.
From
we should
the,
do. Are we going to do a poll as to whether or not there's going to be a marriage?
Ugh.
no.
Never mind.
No, there's not going to be any marriage proposal after
No,
that.
they were married 3 weeks ago.
Or endorsements, please.
In the basement of a pizza parlor in DC.
In the basement pizza parlor in DC.
You know, if you're in the right wing, no more time.
I just hope that Taylor Swift's plane makes it in from Japan.
Oh yeah, I sincerely hope so.
Yeah,
I hope
I'm
they
sure.
stop tracking her plane. That's
Are they doing that like with NORAD so
And
that it's
she's asked that they stop doing it, and the guy has told her.
laughed at her?
Yeah.
So is NORAD tracking her like they do Santa?
Oh
Uh,
So never mind.
I need to get a paper bag or something. I'm gonna hurt.
Uh-oh.
no, Santa Claus.
I thought you would be preoccupied, Frank, with the king having been diagnosed with some kind of cancer.
Mm.
Well,
Let's
I'm not preoccupied by it.
No, we're
but
not done.
I am interested in it. That's for sure.
We haven't introduced our friend Brent yet.
From
yet.
the state of confusion is Brent Leary.
Confusion,
I would stop doing this if you didn't react that way.
frustration, disgust, whatever it is.
That's not true.
I am rooting for the Rams. I don't care who's in the damn Super Bowl. I'm rooting for the Rams, and it's an honor to be a part of the pre-bowl coverage.
Hey, if it's Super Bowl Sunday, it's the Gillmor gang.
That's
Brent,
Until
did
the Puppy Bowl.
Did you watch Curve Your Enthusiasm with the Georgia election reference?
I still haven't watched it yet. This is the first episode, you mean, right? Of the new season. I haven't.
No,
I was
spoiler alert. I don't.
no
I
spoiler.
paid the $9, so I don't.
You paid it? Good.
No, absolutely not.
Ah. Okay.
No, HBO can.
He's holding out. He's
Kick
holding
rocks.
out for no known reason.
Yeah, $9. Don't want to do it.
It's the principle.
I've gotten it for free for like 50 years, and all of a sudden I've got to go unbundle myself. So screw that.
Well, I haven't watched it yet, but I will. Maybe
Okay.
I'll even watch it tonight.
All right, excellent. And then don't let me know.
And I won't say a word to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's get started. Dennis, what do you want to talk about?
I want to find out. I want to exercise scenarios in which Joe Biden gracefully backs out of the election and opens up the convention to convention.
What?
And
You're breaking up.
Can
You have
hear-
to speak closer to your computer or microphone.
Yeah. Okay. I just changed microphones. How's this now?
It's better.
Perfect.
So how is this going to work? I think Joe Biden after this week has to acknowledge that he's too old. The public isn't with him. He's got to find a way to gracefully back out and let a younger generation take over.
So this is a major cave for you. You've been talking about how optimistic you are about the election, and all of a sudden you're dumping the Democratic candidate.
Wow.
I'm optimistic that there aren't enough crazies to elect Donald Trump, but that's different from saying that we can elect anybody. Joe Biden is looking old. I think if Joe Biden exits in favor of, I don't know, somebody else, that all of a sudden Donald Trump will be the one that looks old. And
Who would that somebody else? Who do you think that somebody else could be?
Gavin
well,
Newsom.
that's what the
Gavin
convention
Newsom.
process is about. I think
If
Gavin
he
Newsom would be
doesn't
a
pick
good
his
choice.
vice president, he's going to lose a large portion of his support.
I don't think he'll lose much.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, she hasn't done a lot in the last 4 years. I'm a Kamala fan, but I'm trying to be realistic.
Yeah,
I'm
but there
not,
are
I am
several
not,
million Kamala fans that would not like that move, and those are the kind of folks that really won Georgia for him.
Yeah.
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 I'm not a Kamala fan. I'm not against her either. I just think she is underwhelming on a public stage and has various personal characteristics in her speech that put people off. So I don't think she's electable. I'm not.
Well, all the more
I'm
reasons.
not really against her.
Yeah, all the more reason to have a robust primary process with Joe Biden out of the way. Let Kamala run. Let Gavin Newsom run. Let Amy Klobuchar run.
Can I ask
Huh?
you guys, last week we weren't talking like this. Is it because of that report that came out that said
Yeah.
dude was old? Is that what's
Yeah,
going on here?
it's because of the press conference.
Oh, it's
It's
the
not
press
gonna go
conference
away.
on top of the report.
It's just the same, press conference for weeks now.
I'm kind of shocked here.
Yeah,
No, well, let's just recap, just in case anyone doesn't know. He did a press conference explicitly to contest the fact that he had a bad memory. And during the press conference, he mixed up the president of Mexico with the president of Egypt.
Yeah.
And,
I'm going to have a poll now. How many of the people that we're looking at right now think that being the worst president in American history is not as bad as Joe Biden's memory?
how many think that?
Yeah,
I think we'll all, you're forcing us to vote that way, which
I'm
we
not
all,
forcing you. This is you can
well, of course, no one's going to say
you
Trump's
can
better than Biden.
filibuster, and that's gone well in the past.
Look,
If Biden was on his deathbed, still breathing his last breath, I'd vote Biden against Trump on that vote.
Well, get ready.
Yeah, but then you're going to have President Harris, which is
I
not.
don't have a problem with that.
okay.
I
How
have
is
a
that?
problem
Is that
with-
worse than Trump? I mean, I'm
No.
Well,
Of
the
course not.
people you need to convince are the people who are on the fence right now, who are thinking Donald or Joe, and then you factor in, well, if it's not Joe, it's going to be Kamala. What are those people going to do? Those people are bigots.
If you were to, without answering your question yet, Steve, if you were to look
Oh, I
at,
thought you did answer it by not raising your hand.
well, I did.
Okay,
But if
thanks.
you were to say, okay, it's about that press conference on top of that report, would you then not say that when Trump said that it's okay for Russia to attack NATO countries that don't pay their bills to America, that sort of thinking is okay? And that's not bad enough for him to just
I ask Dennis, because I think that the idea that that Biden is going to resign is absolutely a non-starter.
Okay. I want to back up a little bit. Okay. Let's take Dennis's premise that Kamala is not electable on her own. However, if we do vote Joe Biden in and somehow he either becomes incapacitated, can't perform his duties, or dies, she becomes president, not by election, but by default, because that's the way our system works. So we can get a president, Kamala Harris, not through election, possibly by voting for Joe Biden, and should there be some turn of events, then we have her, not elected, but seated. So what's wrong with, or are you saying that because people are thinking about that of a possibility, they really don't want her that much that they won't vote for Joe Biden? Is that the question?
No, no,
Okay.
I think the process should be opened up to uh, a serious primary. Let Kamala Harris run in the primary. Let other people run in the primary. But I think right now, if it's a
I don't know
Joe,
what you had with your Wheaties, but you know,
if it's a if it's a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump
it is the Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. That's what's
election,
going to happen.
election, um, I think something like 70% of the electorate doesn't like either choice.
Yeah, but that's true in
That's a
every
problem.
presidential election. It's not a problem. It's reality.
But it would be remiss of us not to acknowledge, given how close the election is and how it borders on a small number of states, that it wouldn't take very many people to draw the conclusion Biden's too old for Trump to win. And
Right.
so that is a liability.
Yeah,
Right, and it doesn't take into account that Trump can't tell the difference between Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley.
none
And
of this has anything to do with what's going to happen.
oh, I don't know. I don't know the future, so I can't really
I got
tell you it
$2
has
riding
nothing
on
to do with the future.
$2.
I have two.
You
We have
used to
two people.
you lost it to me, and I'm taking that $2 and I'm putting it on there
Okay,
was no election,
Steve,
and
we're
it
trying
would
to have a
be
rational
Trump
discussion.
and Biden.
You want to go betting and go to Aqueduct, okay?
Okay, is that what's your point?
My point is that the negs that Biden has seem to be worse than the negs that Trump has. Trump has a cult following. Biden does not.
Mm.
Now,
Well,
Trump's
I don't agree
cult
with you.
following isn't enough to win an election, but it's enough to skew everything.
But skewing, we are at skew everything. We've been at it for, probably 8 years. I don't understand why you think that Biden is going to step aside in favor of an open primary. I don't think that will happen.
I hope you're right. I think too much of the electorate is ready to make an emotional decision, not a logical decision.
Which is the way people vote. They tend to vote with emotion anyway. Which, add that to your premise, Dennis. I, I would like to see that happen. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that it's going to move forward. Um, God forbid anyone should die at this point. But it's going to move forward, and I can actually see the Republicans doing if Biden's out, Harris becomes the president. Is that what you want? Kind of promo, commercial.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, I can see that because those guys are that sick, and that would be horrible. That would just be horrible. But I'm sitting over here. I have no idea what's going on in America, other than I do not like what I see. And for the most part, I just don't like it. And I actually don't put any of it beyond. Look, it even looks, for example, like, is George Santos's seat in jeopardy for a Republican to beat the Democrat there, for example? There's so much going on that I can't get my head around it. And I don't think what you've posited, Dennis, is a horrible thing to consider.
Well, look, if Biden is super smart, this will be one of his options in his brain already. He may rule it out at this stage, but it won't be a kind of a thought that doesn't exist in his brain. And he is a smart guy, and he will look at his own press conference and he'll know that there are challenges, and he'll look at the polls and he'll know there are challenges. So as a strategist, and hopefully with a good team around him, where the main goal is to win, this will be one of his options, and it might be something he plays very close to the wire to pull the rug from under the feet of the other side. You just can never tell. And
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you, except that I think that the longer the runway for the eventual nominee to be able to demonstrate their fitness for office, the better it'll be for the Democrats. The thing you don't want to have happen is for Biden to hit May or June and then say, let's open up the convention. That's too late.
Yeah, well, this is something that should have happened, as one of our viewers, Carol Gladson Bloom, says. This should have happened 8 months ago.
Yep, probably. I
And she also points out, or she also posits, that the Republicans will kill Harris.
And
Not
she's
kill,
right.
but
She's right on that. Harris's only path to the presidency is as vice president with the death of the president. And there's no electoral path.
The president, the 25th Amendment, I believe, allows for incapacitation or
well, it's the same thing then, not just the
yeah,
death.
but that's a temporary thing. That's not.
I think that she isn't
well,
electable.
depending upon how memory challenged she is, it's not temporary. It could be the rest of his term.
Dennis is shaking his head. I mean, Brent is shaking his head.
Right.
You're agreeing with me, Steve. It's just on the detail of what the trigger.
No, I'm not agreeing with you. I don't think that this is going to happen.
Well, you think Biden's going to survive the next 5 years?
I think he's going to survive the next week.
Oh, I see. Well, I just wanted to pick up on
the part of the Democrats.
Just to pick up on what Frank said. If you stand back, it isn't only America that this kind of turmoil in politics is going on. It's everywhere in the world. The rise of populism, the fact.
Let's not go over the isms and repeat previous shows. Let's just stick to this. All right, here's the poll.
Well, I think Keith.
How many people? Raise your hand. Excuse me. Raise your hand if you think that Biden will not be the candidate. Okay. All right. Let's see how that moves forward. Okay.
Let's have a second poll. Raise your hands if you think therefore Trump will win.
It really depends on when he drops out.
You did a great job on the your news this week. It's fantastic, although completely wrong. And by the way, I'm the only one who does the polls.
I think that there's something a lot more likely that's going to happen, and I think it's the usual thing that happens when you want to refute a common thought or yeah. So this is what I think will happen is that they're going to show President Biden being vital. They're going to show him bike riding. They're going to show him having other talks. They're going to show him doing things that show his that he's with
demonstrate his fitness for office.
Yeah, I think they're going to do that with file footage.
They've been doing that for months, and they will continue to do it.
Well, to me, it sounds to me like a number of you, and I guess the main press, I mean the traditional press, has really made a sharp left or right or whatever turn on Biden here. Has he declined that much that quickly that you think that he
No,
just.
he hasn't, Tina, but it's become more evident to more people that there are challenges. I think it's more the awareness level of his challenges has gone up as opposed to him having changed.
Now,
It's
what
actually a
makes
beat.
the awareness level go up? I think it's got a lot to do with the way the media has been playing this.
It's totally a media
Yes.
story. That's why we're even talking about this, is because the media has no way of earning a living. And so they're going to go with this because
Yeah.
it gives them the most clicks of all.
Yeah.
And
Well,
whether that
it-
has any impact at all, 9 months from now, we'll find out later. I would expect not. I think that
It is a
will be
two-way
the
street. The press is tracking Trump's faux pas or missteps as well. I think it's actually a beat in the press. The press is saying, "What have we got here? We've got a clown show on both sides. We've got one
Well,
guy that's kind of old and doddering, and you got another guy that's 4 years younger, and can't tell the difference between Pelosi and Haley."
well, I will say, Dennis, to that point, that it almost feels like because of what's been happening, the media is actually starting to even out, as opposed to where we were, say, 2 or 3 months ago, even 2 or 3 weeks ago, for example. That the media is now starting to look at both sides and point out the problems on both sides more than they have before, because quite honestly, there are more problems on both sides than there have been recently.
Than we've ever
there's one
acknowledged
guy
before.
that's
Yeah.
got 92 felony indictments, and then
Hey,
there's
91, don't
guy-
exaggerate.
and then there's this other guy who is having a little trouble communicating with the press.
Yeah.
Brent's
Yeah.
shaking his head. Let's hear it.
The issue is nothing has changed. I mean,
That's right.
it's basically Trump has people that will back him till the ends of the universe. Nobody is backing Biden because they like Biden. They're backing him because they hope he can beat him again. You guys are freaking out because you're starting to, I guess, feel like that might not happen. But on the other side, they're not batting an eye because they're going down with this dude because they just, for whatever reason, they believe in him.
That's
Yeah,
right.
This is what's going on here. You
That's
guys are
completely
freaking out.
correct. Now,
Yes, you're right.
The only
You're
other
right.
thing that I would add is that the idea that Trump could win is the only way that Trump won't win.
Wow, that was
That's
deep.
an
Or
Say that
interesting
as
again.
Bill
formulation.
Clinton once observed, Republicans need to fall in line. No, Democrats need to fall in love. Republicans need to fall in line.
Well, they're doing that part.
They're doing that part
Yeah.
really well. They always have. That's why we've got such a corrupt Congress at this point.
That's a good point, though, Dennis. What I've been thinking about is here's the Congress being puppeted by Trump. So, Trump says, do not vote for that immigration bill. Just kill it before it even gets on the floor, without having read it. And probably more than half of the Republicans didn't read it either. But they just went ahead and did what he said to do.
Mhm.
And what happens? What happens to all these people who have laid down on the sword for Trump if Trump loses? What happens to them? Do they say, "Oh, we backed the wrong guy," or do they just continue on with the MAGA way? That's sort of what I'm also thinking about, and seems to me that if I were, an American citizen voting, which I am and will, those kinds of things would be in my mind as I went in or sent my vote in to be counted.
But Frank, I think we should elevate the reasons that Trump is in the position he's in above the tactics of the election. He's in the position he's in because on the border, on the war in Ukraine and a bunch of other issues, people agree with him. And they agree with him because they don't like America spending money on wars they don't think are important. they don't like the border being wide open, and they consider Biden to be, flawed on both counts. So the way to beat Trump is to have better. The population needs to agree with what Biden stands for, more than agree with what Trump stands for. And
Well,
all
they
the
need to
other issues have-
know. They need to know what Biden stands for as much as they need to agree
Yeah.
with what Biden stands for. And I did not have an opportunity to watch the Sunday shows today. Steve and Tina, I imagine that you guys did. Dennis, I don't know, Brent.
I just watched Chris Christie on NBC. That was it.
I mean, if I were the strategists in the Biden campaign, I would have had every single one of my guns on every single one of those shows today, talking about those things that would make people change their minds. Because I don't think that a lot of people really, I don't really think that Americans, for the most part, know about the fact that, for example, the drug prices are down, or for example, there are more jobs, or for example, there is no inflation, or for example, the S&P has hit 5,000, the highest it's ever been in history, or for example, the economy is really humming along, or for example, A, and B, for example, what's going on in Ukraine is important because it's part of what defends the other European countries in NATO against the Russian aggression, and that if it's not stopped, it will not end. And I don't think that people understand that. And also, I, I don't know how to put this. Today I was watching probably the most sad moment I've ever seen in the war in Gaza. And this just gorgeous little 9-year-old girl looking straight into the camera and asking where her family is. Well, they were all dead and they were all around her. And an hour later, she was dead too. It just, it just really tugged at me. And it, I don't know where I'm going with that, but that bothered me more than I think anything we're talking about right now.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that the young voters, and I know we don't necessarily trust young voters. I think I don't. I always put a lot of high hopes in them, and they don't necessarily turn out. But voters my young daughter's age, and she's 23, that war is front and center of what they're thinking about, and they are not happy about it at all. And
I had a long talk with my 22-year-old about it, and his gut instinct, of course, is to care about the people who are dying.
Mhm.
And it really doesn't go much beyond that. It's the underdog versus the powerful. It took about half an hour to go a little bit back in history and talk about the period since October 7th for him to become more considered. I do totally think that the dialogue is missing because it's such an emotional issue that people really don't want to go there. It's a very difficult issue. But it's also the case that instinct of young people to care about the underdog is a good instinct. They just don't understand anti-Semitism, that they don't understand the Holocaust. They have no characterization of Israel that's anything other than negative.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
so
history of Palestine, of that part of the world, is very complicated. It's not an easy thing to understand, and I don't want to say that people are not even willing to understand it because of the emotion of what it is. But you're absolutely right, Keith. The emotion is overtaken what the actual story is in that part of the world.
Yeah. You can't really. I can do this myself in my head. I can say, okay, I look at all that death, which is appalling, and I can persuade myself intellectually that I blame Hamas for that.
Yeah.
Because I do. I think they triggered the whole thing, probably on purpose.
But Hamas is not the Palestinian population.
No, it's not. It's a totally separate entity. But I think it leverages the Palestinian population.
Oh, of course.
And so I can do that. I don't think it's easy to do that unless you're, you know, as old as I am and have as much knowledge of the events, it's very hard to do that because the pictures seem to speak for
Oh,
themselves.
I don't know, Keith. I think as a historian myself, I think we put too much history into this analysis. And I think we need to separate out the history and ask ourselves what's the logic. Okay, everybody in the media is pretty much saying that the Israelis don't have a day one solution. What happens after the guns stop? And you can't go into something like that without that knowledge. And so what we have is a client state, Israel, taking advantage of its big brother and basically counting on its big brother to run interference for it so that it can continue having really a tantrum. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, a tantrum in Gaza.
Don't you think though, Dennis, that having that sort of day one solution going in is something that looks at history?
You know, you want to look at history, go back to the 1972 Munich Olympic bombings or assassinations. Israel was not as powerful in those days, and it took several years, but Israel tracked down and killed every leader of that outfit.
And that was a surgical strike.
Those were surgical strikes, and Hollywood even made a movie about it. Okay, that's how I know about it. So I'm asking. The thing I'm saying is, you got a right to be pissed off, but is this the best way to show that you're pissed off?
I don't agree, Dennis. I mean, I understand why you say it's a tantrum because it has many of the characteristics of a tantrum, and I can appreciate that.
It walks like a duck.
But I think it's more than a tantrum. I think what happened, because people were killed simply because they were Jewish, and a lot of people, that it immediately conjured up the idea that Jews are dispensable. And the fact that Hamas has this river to the sea thesis, which basically means no Jews, reinforces that. And so the idea that something that we all thought was in the past, Jews can be killed, suddenly is not in the past. And that is a massive civilizational decision. And I think the people of Israel feel that deeply and believe that unless they can remove Hamas as an agent, they won't be safe. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
You know what, Keith? In doing this, we see Israel again revisiting and reliving the trauma of the Second World War, and the world can't exist in that scenario. That whenever Israel feels threatened, it has carte blanche to destroy everything.
It's not about feeling threatened. It's about being killed.
Pardon?
It isn't really about feeling threatened. It's about actually being killed.
I have to say, I'm sorry.
that.
I'm sorry I started this conversation. I'm sitting here going, oh man, this is one of those conversations that actually has no end.
Well, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back because it started with Tina's point about her daughter and the fact that young people, that this war is a catalyst for them not understanding anything positive about Biden. That's really where it started. And I think if we bring it back to the election, it's hard to escape the truth that lots of young people are not going to vote Biden. It probably means they're not going to vote because Trump, by the way, I don't know what his policies are on Gaza. He's been cleverly silent, but I suspect they're pretty close to Biden's, if not more.
No. Trump moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. He's not with Biden at all.
Correct. Well, he's going to be pro-Israeli in the same way that Biden is.
Well, I think it's interesting that you think about the sort of the World War II connection. and take it a step further, not the issue of what World War II did to the Jews, but the issue of how World War II happened. And that can take you back to the Trump election.
Can we go back to the votes that took place about that? The senators on both sides had come together. They had created this this bill that they had all pretty much agreed on about the aid and the immigration stuff. McConnell and all the guys on his side, and the Democrats gave up a lot on their side. They seem to have been like right there up until the one person, and I call him the king of the Republicans because that's what it is. The Republicans have a monarchy. It's one person rule over there. And the question that I think the big question is for this country is, do you want that one person monarchy that rules the Republicans? Do you want that model for the whole country? Because that's basically what's going on here. If it wasn't for him getting mad at the president of Ukraine because he didn't give him the okay to say, yeah, they're over there investigating Biden. If he had said, oh yeah, we'll do that for you, Ukraine would have their aid. That's the only person holding this thing up is his grudge against Zelensky because he did not give him the opportunity to say, yeah, they're over there. The Ukraine is over there investigating Biden because he messed up. And then that's the same reason because he doesn't want to give up the talking point for immigration that they didn't get that part of the bill done. It's a king. It's a monarchy over there. One person can change everything over there. And the question that the United States has to ask is, do you want that to go from just a party to the whole country?
Okay,
Well,
here's poll number 2. Excuse me, Frank. Poll number 2. Raise your hand if you think Trump is going to win the presidency.
One.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I was starting to lift up my hand. You couldn't really see that because
Yeah, but that,
I was starting to.
I thought it was just a twitch.
That would have been
that was a twitch, but I didn't because because of what Brent just said, for example. But of course, because I'm looking at it in from the perspective from a global perspective. The fear that the leaders of the European Union have, the fear of that the leaders of the free world have, if this were to happen, that the American voters, I don't think they care about what the free world thinks about it. They care about what's going on in their own backyard. And honestly, what's going on in their own backyard, really, it's not so bad if you don't listen to what, if you don't listen to what Trump and the non-mainstream media have to say about it, it's not so bad.
Well, that's good advice, but what we heard on the show is that let's get rid of Biden.
I don't think we really heard that.
But you can't say just get rid of Biden.
Your hand for that. The only
you got to say. I think the reason everybody is skittish on Biden is because they're freaking out. They don't think he's going to be able to either live that long, or if he does, nobody's going to vote for him. Let's face it. Biden's just a proxy.
He needs to change his diet. He needs to change his diet. He needs to get on that, cheeseburger and milkshake.
How about the last 2 years of Ronald Reagan's presidency?
Ooh.
Yeah, I forget.
How about that? Well, he forgot too.
No, I mean, Nancy was the president for the last year at least.
Well,
and she wasn't even the first female president. Woodrow Wilson's second wife. Remember he had that not remember, but
I don't remember.
I remember. I'm old enough to know.
See, the perils of old age. I do not remember.
You know what?
he had that massive stroke and he was pretty much I know Dennis knows all about he was pretty much incapacitated. She wouldn't let anybody go near that guy. So she was the one basically running the country for I don't know how many last months because
Now,
he was gone.
the issues, though, about both of those examples is that they all happened after he or either one of them had already been elected and were okay for the first year or two or however long it was until they started to deteriorate. And, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but even Roosevelt had issues at the end of his presidency. And, it happens.
Yes, it does. It does happen. In FDR's time, there was a compliant press, and a lot of people just kind of
Overlook,
overlooked the fact of his incapacitation.
Well, even in fact helped. Nobody knew about the train under the Capitol that moved the president around because he was in a wheelchair. Heck, I think a lot of people didn't even know he was in a wheelchair.
A lot of people didn't.
What about
The
Kennedy's
thing-
back?
The thing that occurs to me is that Biden's age isn't really the issue. It's whether he can play a strong game. Like this week, Trump, in my opinion, made a huge blunder. Trump said that he doesn't care what happens to countries outside of the US. They can do what they like, was his exact phrase, in the context of Ukraine and NATO. And what he did by saying that was put in play the entire history of Western civilization as a progressive, humanizing trend, and said he doesn't give two hoots, and displayed for the world to see that he's a self-obsessed, authoritarian person who doesn't actually believe in democracy, not American democracy, just any democracy.
Well, that's fodder for the
Now,
MAGAs.
nobody attacked him. He got away with it.
He gets away with all that stuff because the folks that are backing him, they're not going away.
Well, the Lincoln Project is back in business,
Yeah, they are.
and they're starting to publish some of that stuff. Hey, can I just ask for your indulgence, and so that I can have a mulligan on the Israel situation? My whole point is that we are so inured to the idea of picking sides that the first thing we did was to pick sides, even with the 20-year-olds in this country, pick sides. And in my estimate, the only side to pick is peace. And it's shocking how we, as a world community, have not, to this day, tried to get the shooting to stop and figure out a way to peace.
Where's John Lennon when you need him?
Well, peace is a complicated. I mean, we're probably the wrong group to be discussing it, but peace is complicated because it requires an appreciation that what you've got in that part of the world is two peoples who have an equal claim to live in a single space, neither of which, and this is less true of the Israelis, more true of the Palestinians, neither of which will allow the other to be there.
Yeah, but
Yes.
Keith, I agree with all of that, but that's sort of a sideshow.
So what if
It's above my pay grade too. My pay grade goes to the point of why aren't we trying to get peace? I don't care if it's hard. I don't care if somebody's going to claim to this or somebody's going to claim to that. Why aren't we working the hard question?
I'd like to be a fly on the wall in a cabinet meeting where Biden is talking about how he feels about Netanyahu.
Oh,
Now-
didn't they already say? Didn't he already?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to be discovered.
I wonder because Netanyahu may be the single most important cog in the peace wheel.
Oh, for
Yikes.
sure. For sure.
That's not good.
No, it's not. Netanyahu is Donald Trump. Putin, who was interviewed by, what was that guy's name? Putin is
Carlton
Donald Trump.
Tucker. Swanson
Carlson
Foods.
Swanson Tucker. Putin is Donald Trump. Xi Jinping, although he may be losing some of it, is Donald Trump. These despots around the world are Donald Trump, and they are strongmen, and that is what the
That's what he
maggots
wants to be.
want.
Well, if
I would give you, I think, a better analogy. Donald Trump is Neville Chamberlain if we let this go on any further.
What he makes the big mistake.
He makes the big mistake, tries to appease Hitler, says we have peace in our time, and we don't.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is already has his nose up Vladimir Putin's ass. This would not be a hard lift.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a more complicated canvas when it comes to supporting democracy against authoritarianism. I mean, you look at people's attitude, for example, to the Hungarian prime minister who was
Orban.
elected. He was elected. He's elected democratically. You know, most of Europe accuses him of being a dictator, which he isn't, because they don't like his politics, which is fair enough. So I think somehow democracy has become a kind of a weaponized word that doesn't have meaning anymore. You just use it against people you don't like. And I think we have to retrieve the real meaning of it, which is the people get to choose. If the people choose Trump, that's democracy. If the people choose Orban, that's democracy. If the people choose right-wing racists in Sweden, that's democracy. And we have to fight on the issues, because we'll lose if we fight on, weaponizing single words.
Well, I agree with you that we have to choose. I disagree with you that the method that we use is to talk about the issues. Look what's happened on this show for the last half hour, 45 minutes. Have we accomplished anything? I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
I'm not sure that
What do you think should have been accomplished?
Yeah, I was going to. I agree.
I'm a perpetual optimist, or I wouldn't even be here.
We have examined the issues, which is part of democracy.
I'm not criticizing anything that anybody has said. I'm pointing out that I don't think it's particularly effective, this conversation.
Well, that's
I'm sorry. I don't see how that can even be expressed.
Well, I just did.
Steve, let's take abortion.
It lacks those words lack meaning.
Let's take.
I don't know what that means.
Let's take the issue of abortion. Why is it that the border in Ukraine is dominating the narrative, not abortion? Because by the way, issues do dominate the narrative, not personalities. It's about issues. That's why.
I understand that this is your opinion. My opinion is that this is a what do they call it? A vanity contest. The presidency is not about the issues. The voters are reacting to issues, but how they are steered in what direction is
emotional.
It's totally emotional. And to the extent that, I mean, Dennis started this conversation by basically saying the exact opposite of what he's been saying for months.
Well, look, if
that tips is, to me, there's a signal there, which is, I think that he's right to express this.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not about the topic. It's not about the issue. It's about people. It's about the despair that we feel having our chains being yanked by this monster.
Well,
and our complete inability to grapple with what you were just talking about, Keith, which is, at the end of the day, this is democracy, and whoever wins is the one that's going to win.
Yeah.
Well,
And I
Well-
don't think, I'm still talking.
Yeah.
And what I think is going to happen, and I've expressed it several times here, several times last week, several times the week before, nobody gives a shit what I say about this, but I'm right, which is that when the American people are faced with this being their own damn fault, then they're going to have to make a different decision. And if they don't, that's the decision that they're going to be making. They may be saying, "Oh, these liberals, they don't, they're talking about the death of democracy." I'm talking about, I want a 60-inch television set and I want unlimited credit cards.
Yeah, me
Are they
too.
going to get it from anybody? Are they going to get it from either of these candidates? I don't think so. I think this is a composite discussion about the future of voting. This is about whether the American people will take it seriously. And I am, as most of the people on this call, including Dennis, saying, in fact, I think, Keith, you were the only one who didn't raise your hand for this. The American people are going to vote not for this chaos.
So can I say something, Steve?
Yeah.
Are you done? Okay.
I'm not
So-
done, but yes.
Okay. So say the American people posit that the American people vote because they want to get rid of this chaos, which means that if Donald Trump and Biden are the two candidates, it's Biden who wins. Do you think that that's going to be the end of it? I don't. And I don't
What's
think
the end
so.
of it mean? What are you talking about? The end of it? The end
That
of what?
that Donald Trump will accept it, and that his people will accept it. It won't be the end of it. There will be mass chaos continuing. That is what will happen. And I think
I don't
think-
agree. I
I
don't
don't
agree.
worry. You might be right, but I don't worry about it because if Trump loses, then it's Biden who can invoke the Insurrection Act, not Trump.
Mm,
That's
Can
correct.
can
Yeah.
we go back another or just last week or a couple weeks ago? We were kind of. It felt like most folks here thought that the legal system was also going to get Trump. Are you now feeling that's not the case because the freak out just was like a whiplash to me between last time we were on and this time? Are you feeling that that's also not going to happen like you were thinking before?
I think
do-
that's a good question because think about what's going on in Florida with that judge. The only thing that's gonna make that trial happen anytime before the election is going to be to have that judge either recused or taken out. And
Let's do a thought experiment about Judge Cannon in Florida. Pretend for a moment that she was appointed by the Democrats and that she is a staunch progressive. Just pretend that for a moment.
Okay. Okay.
Would you be opposed? Would you be trying to get her off the Supreme Court or whatever court she's on?
Federal court.
This is democracy. Without democracy, Trump has nothing.
Hmm.
Look,
That's-
look,
The only way he is
Good point.
successful is by playing the game of who's in charge.
I think you've got to say he has every right to use every trick in the book as long as it's legal to try to prolong or
Yeah,
delay.
well, but as long as it's legal, he doesn't play by that rule.
Well, so far at least, he hasn't been found to be illegal, which is the test.
If you believe, Judge Judy, yeah, but
Yeah, but you
else-
can't. We the people can't prejudge the outcome of a trial. I mean, we can have an opinion, but it isn't.
well, we can vote. We can vote.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Democrats don't stand up and say, okay, Biden's old and Trump, it's like, yeah, but you're going to be ugly forever. I don't know why we don't say, I don't care if he stops it for the next 40 years. I don't think he's going to last that long.
I don't see it.
Eventually, that court is going to come in with a verdict.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna. Do you think the ebbs and flows of these things that we forget 4 years ago? There were bad weeks for Biden. There were bad weeks for Trump. There were good weeks for Biden. This stuff ebbs and flows. So if this week they come back and they award what's her face or the state of or the city of New York or the state of New York gets this $350 million.
That won't matter.
I think it'll matter. That'll change. People will be talking about that instead of all this, at least for the time being.
Well,
Particularly if they make him shut down, he'll never be able to run a business in New York again. That's going to be
can't
all
wait.
we're going to be talking about for a while.
I agree. I can't wait for them to come back and say, "I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, but your card is not accepted."
so I've been
Don't
consistent.
have $387,000.
I have been consistent on this point, and Steve has consistently disagreed with me. Every time Trump loses in court, he wins in votes, and
Or in money.
or in money. And the Supreme Court this week probably is the most important conversation that happened, where all of the reading between the lines and the tea leaves suggest that they're totally going to say he is not an insurrectionist and he cannot be pushed off ballots.
I
No,
don't
I
think they're going to say
saying
that.
that.
I
They're
don't
not
think they'll
saying
say
that.
that.
No.
I think he'll read that into whatever their decision is, but I don't think that
Whatever
they'll
he
say that.
said. I've never said that I disagreed with you that it would translate into success for Trump, but in the final analysis, he's on trial in 4 major felony cases,
That's true.
and at least one of them, I think there's a strong likelihood he's going to lose.
Maybe.
At that point, he's not going to be the first triply filibuster, whatever. He's going to be candidate and convict.
He's
And-
going to get some striped pajamas.
And
But see, the thing is, in New York,
it's going to have an impact on that voter. I don't believe the polls that say that there's a 5-point spread between if he's convicted or not convicted. I think that's spin coming from the Republicans.
look, I think that
I don't buy it.
I think the New
What I
York-
do buy is that if he is convicted, I don't care if it's in 2048, he's not going to be president.
Well,
You know,
He'll be
I
president
think
for
we
what?
I think we disagree on that. I think the most likely scenario is he doesn't get convicted before November, and if he does,
I agree.
he actually goes ahead of Biden by even more. And
Maybe, but I'm not talking about polls. I'm talking about the vote.
I'm talking about the vote as well.
Okay, so did you raise your hand that he's going to win the election?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you're the only one on this call.
By the way, I've been wrong before, and I may be wrong again. I'm okay to be wrong.
Well, I hope you're wrong.
Dennis, what is given your scenario of let's have a primary and really get some other perspective presidents running. What is the deadline for that? Isn't that like now? Is it possible to still do this?
There's a very good article which I think I posted on Substack. I'm going to answer.
I think you're right, Tina, because we got Super Tuesday coming up. There are filing deadlines to get your name on a ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, having your name on a ballot is not the same as winning the presidency.
I'm talking about a primary ballot. I'm talking about just getting your name on a primary ballot.
The convention does have a lot of power if it chooses to use it, right?
Yeah.
True.
yeah, but they won't.
And the House of
That's
Representatives,
on that.
if it gets thrown, into the Electoral College and then thrown out of the Electoral College, then the House of Representatives suddenly has some real power in this, who gets to be president.
Yeah, and it ain't in the Democrats' favor.
But
No,
I,
didn't
was
the
honest.
prospective vice presidential candidate, what's her name from New York, Slotnick or whatever?
Stefanik.
Yeah, didn't she say? Didn't she say that she would have done exactly the opposite of what Mike Pence did? Didn't make a dent in anybody's
Well,
conversation.
maybe if that's tested in the future by a Supreme Court, she may be going to get some of the orange jumpsuit as well.
Yeah, but she's
So-
not going to be the next VP. It's going to be your boy, Tucker.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about some of these cases for a second. My opinion, if he's already been found liable for the fraud case, that's happened. It's done. It's what's happening is how much money that's going to cost him and whether he can work out of New York. That's not going to matter one bit to the voters. The other one is what happens with the hush money case. Nobody cares about that either. There's
Right.
two other cases that people care about, the Georgia case and the Florida case. That's it. The Florida case is on track to be put on hold until after the election. The
I would
No.
disagree
You're
with you.
missing a case. You're
Georgia
actually
is
missing.
not going to be
One
uh,
time.
Georgia
The
is
14th,
going to be
the 14th Amendment case as well.
No, there's another case in D.C. about Jack Smith's 4-count felony indictment for
January 6th.
Yeah,
That they'll care
that's
about.
that's
that's the one
Yeah.
that counts. And the document case, my bet is that Trump's going to win the document case.
Because of
I
the
don't think
judge?
it's going to matter. I do think Trump is dying from 1,000 paper cuts.
I agree with you there. But what my point was that not all of the cases are going to matter. Only a couple or three of them
All right,
are
let's
going to
talk
matter.
about the one or two that matter.
Well, the Jack Smith case is the most important one, I think. That's the January 6th case. And the next one would be the election interference in Georgia. I think that's an important one. And then further down the line, it's the documents case, which I'm starting to feel like you might be right about that, Steve.
Well, I feel that the Georgia case is flimsy because Trump
What,
is
because of the tape?
because of the tape. Because of the idea that what's her name? The
Danny?
reporter
Oh, reporter.
ran about what Trump saying in a campaign stop that the media should go and look at the email server data,
Not that again.
and that was somehow an indication of him inciting or colluding with the Russians, all this kind of stuff. As much as I believe that is probably true on the margins, on a legal basis, is completely erroneous. That's not a good case, and I don't think the Georgia case is a good case either. But
You are forgetting that the Stormy Daniels case in New York has 34 felony indictments in it. A felony conviction at the state level is just the same as a felony conviction at the federal level, and it has.
I agree with you about that, but that's not what we were talking about.
Well,
We're
it's
talking about the
taken
Georgia.
me a long
I
time
did
to
bring it up.
get a word in edgewise here.
I brought it up. I did mention
Yeah,
it.
I'm partially
And
guilty.
you're right, Dennis. I
Not
mean,
completely.
I didn't even think about that.
So that's
it's
two possible. If we poll the jurors here, there are two cases that have possible impact. One is the January 6th one, the Jack Smith, and the other is potentially the New York case for Stormy Daniels.
No, I don't agree with that.
Well, that's what you just said, Stormy.
No, I
No,
said
he added that.
you haven't accounted for the Stormy Daniels case. My contention is that there are 91 felony indictments. One conviction takes him off the ballot.
Why is it taking him off the ballot?
You cannot be a convicted felon and be president.
What are
taking
the
them off,
chances
taking them
In
off the
most states,
ballot.
if you're a
I've never
convicted felon,
seen
you
that.
can't even vote.
Where can you put in the chat or somewhere supporting information about that? I've never heard that.
I think you can.
True, but I don't know.
I think you can be a convicted felon and stand for president.
That's right.
Yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but that getting him off the ballot is not going to fix what ails this country. It's so divided, as Keith so said numerous times. Every time something goes against him legally, it just creates more folks to dig in on his side. So if he were taken off of the ballot because some felony or something, that's not going to make this country any much closer together. Or
They're
is
not
closer
even
to-
going to take him off the ballot because of what happened in Colorado. They're not going to make that.
No.
That would be a big mistake if the Supreme Court did that. I think we all think here, after having heard
He has to be beaten definitively for anything to actually change.
he has to be beaten by a lot. It
He's
needs to
already
be-
been beaten once by
On a
by
whisker.
yeah.
well,
Well,
7
I mean,
million
talk
votes.
about Georgia. I mean, how many votes was that? Like 5,000?
I think we
So-
were up to 16,000. I don't know.
But what you just said, Brent, he has to be beaten, preferably by a lot.
Yeah.
I
Landslide.
think that's the spirit behind what Dennis started the show with as well, which is fear that he might not be, and gathering up our ammunition around the table. How can we beat him by a lot? Dennis is saying might include Biden not running.
Well, I disagree about a lot. I think that he needs to be beaten by enough.
Yeah.
It has to be definitive. It can't be just whiskers here, because we all know what happens when he wins by a whisker. He doesn't want to go, and he gets his troops,
When he
can
loses.
get his troops rallied more and rowdier than anybody in this country, any one individual in this country right today, as it stands.
That's the dream scenario, is he gets beaten by a lot and then goes to jail for a long time.
I'd go for that.
From your lips to God's ears.
I will. Well, there's one thing that my favorite Substackian, Robert Reich,
Substackian.
said, and this goes back to what happened with the bill. It's not a normal part of our political system to have members of Congress deciding what laws to support on the basis of threats. I think that's something that is what's happening in large part. There are threats, and these people are concerned. And I think we lost yet another Republican congressman just recently. And it's turning into the MAGA world, and the threats don't matter to them.
But that's true even if he goes. I mean, the woman who we just mentioned, who said she would have done the opposite of Pence.
Stefanik.
Next vice
And
president,
the new
Tucker.
the new speaker of the House, they represent the core of a kind of the comrades, if you will, in arms on the side of MAGA. And you can't see anyone in the Republican Party having wind in their sails anywhere close to the wind they've got in their sails. So even when Trump's gone, this is baked in now. This is kind of civilizational level conversation about what do you want the future to look like.
I don't agree.
well,
I don't agree. If that logic was true, then we'd all be John Birchers. MAGA would never have raised its ugly head.
I don't think I'd be a John Birch.
If Trump goes down, it all goes down. I think the MAGA doesn't survive.
I
think
think
you're right. Look, we're talking about fads. We're talking about long-term stochastic trends that run on a 50 or 60-year cycle, and they are actually not new to America. If you go back to the early 19th century, there was a long period of time when new religions were brought forth on a very regular basis. They all kind of started in upstate New York, and upstate
Lutheran?
New York,
Lutheranism.
No, Lutherans were older than that, but the Mormons started up there. the part of New York where all that happened came to be known as the burned over district.
There you go. You finally got it in.
Yeah, I did. The burned over district because every few years there's somebody new preaching fire and brimstone. The MAGA movement is nothing more than the latest iteration of the burned over district. And right now the GOP is charred from it.
I wish that was something I agreed with Dennis, but I think there's something that's both more of the moment and more fundamental happening that is kind of baked into this period of history, which is why I think it's happening in other countries as well, which is the lack of faith in globalism and progress translates into nationalism and racism pretty much everywhere. And the idea that globalism is a bad thing, it seems to be fully baked in. And so anyone that is for democracy and for progress sounds like they're against the nation and for foreigners. That is deep in the narrative about the world we're living in. And that's why I think it's civilizational. It's like everything good that happened after feudalism, the rise of nation states, the rise of global trade, the rise of global travel, the rise of immigration with mixed cultures. I mean, look at the UK now versus what it was before the Second World War, or anywhere for that matter. That progress, which brings people together across borders with rising living standards and trade and travel, all of that is being questioned.
Well, I don't doubt it, but you have to also say that for several hundred years now, pluralism has run the world, and it's done a fairly good job. This polarization that we're seeing is a very, very recent vintage. I wouldn't give it more than 20 years. And so the question is this polarization the new thing, or is it an aberration that's going to get expunged?
Well, we've already experienced.
I would like to ask you what's technology's role in globalism? Like I would have thought that the advent of the internet and the ease of use of it for so many people, not every person in the world, but so many, that there would be more reason to more connection to globalism, to seeing the world as your neighbor. And is it having it? Am I on the wrong track at all?
No, you're right.
There's nothing to do with it, but like it almost seems like it's having the opposite effect.
Well, you can't have globalism without technology, even if you consider airplanes, telephone systems,
Morse code,
everything, universal language,
Smoke signals.
So globalism is really just another word for the human race sharing the planet and being able to collaborate with each other. And nation states predate globalism, as globalism grew, you got all these narratives about how it was negative for various nation states, lack of control, lack of borders. So there's now, the idea of strong border is a universal consensus, whereas 40 years ago, there was a discussion about getting rid of borders.
Yeah, but Keith, take that a step further. Technology has been taken over by grifters who use technology to disenfranchise the populace. That's I think the cause of populism. I think that's the reason you're saying that so many people are so pissed off, right? I mean, their jobs,
people are pissed off
their whole factories have been sent overseas.
Yeah, people are pissed off because they feel like they're the victims of forces outside of their control.
Right, and a lot of them are technology based.
And I actually think they're wrong about that. I think the only solution actually is more technology, not less. But it is what it is. That's the era we're living through. And dastardly people who are prepared to use nationalism and racism to put wind in their sails will have a willing audience.
And technology.
Yeah.
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 It's not technology's fault. It's
Correct.
accelerated by it. It's accelerated by it.
Well, technology is a tool, and so far we haven't had much in the way of government guardrails.
I don't hear anything from Keith on that one.
Well, it's interesting. A good friend of mine wrote a book recently about borders, and he used the term not in a literal way of meaning national borders, but boundaries in general. And he said, people feel out of control when the boundaries they grew up assuming existed break down. So populism he attributed directly to a sense of lack of control. And
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because it's really a modern day interpretation of B.F. Skinner's behaviorism.
The Skinner box.
And
By the way, what happens when you don't have guardrails?
If you don't have guardrails, you have to be super self-confident that you know what the future looks like and try to make it happen. And most people aren't that. Most people
are pretty confident.
Yeah.
Of their own intuition.
Yeah.
That's why Trump's gonna do so well.
That's why Trump is not going to win.
But it doesn't mean he's not gonna do badly.
Either we count on our own intuition or we don't.
Sounds like a period.
Trump is in many ways peaking early, and I've said this before. He's already reached his asymptote, and it's not 50%.
Well, at the beginning of the show, you look like you were rethinking that.
No, I'm not rethinking it. I just want to put the best foot forward for the Democratic Party, and I want to have a government that operates for the next 4 years in the best way possible. Joe Biden has been a great New Deal kind of Democrat. I wish he was 10 years younger.
But I think, didn't he say in the beginning that
10 years ago, but what actually he did was to beat Trump the first time. And so far, I don't see anybody who can beat him this time.
Didn't he say in the beginning of of his first term that he was there to do the first term, not to do a second term? I thought that was something he said. And when he
used
said
the word transitional.
Yes, which implied one term.
Right.
And then at that one point when he said, "Yeah, I'm running again," there were a lot of people, I think, who whiplashed at that, and that's what we're sort of dealing with now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think we're dealing with it. I think
we're talking about it.
Yeah, but I don't think I think he made a good decision to run again. I think he looks older and older every second of every day.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I didn't think that he would pass any of the bills that he got passed. I didn't think he would win the presidency to begin with. And I'm counting on being wrong with a lot of people that he's not going to win the second time.
Yeah, and so the Democrats can take a page out of the Republican playbook and say, yeah, I'm voting for him because he's done shit. And he's, I like his policies and he's gotten somewhere. That's what they say about Trump. They hold their nose or whatever and they say, but I like this about him. Well, Biden has gotten things done. There has been
very true. Very true.
I think
Puppy bowl.
So let's kick him out in favor of Newsom getting carved up into little pieces.
Oh God!
There's gonna be a kitten halftime show, Dennis.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Right.
definitely think Newsom is way too slick for his own good. I would not like to see him be the winner of this turmoil.
Well, I've underestimated him previously as well. I once I thought what he did with
Sanctimonious?
this marriage was
No.
smart, brave, and effective. And I think he's been on a roll ever
Turning the
since.
tide.
So I underestimate him at my peril as I do Biden.
You know, I think the issue with that is that there isn't enough time to increase his familiarity with the larger electorate, which is pretty important, especially if it's an
very
electorate.
important.
Yeah, which is especially if you believe, which I think Steve and I certainly do. I mean, I think the rest of us do, that the vote is going to be an emotional one. I'm not sure that he pulls enough to make that emotional connection.
Well, I
To me-
agree with you, but that's why I think it'll be,
Oh,
oh,
Ooh.
What
nice.
happened?
Good
Wow,
job.
Zoom is saying we better end this, huh?
Yeah,
Zoom is
just-
like, the
Start it up
Super Bowl
again?
is about to start in 3
You can
hours.
restart it. You'll have a second thing to edit in.
well, it's on Restream.
It's
Oh,
still
it's-
streaming. It's
Yeah,
just
well,
not
there we go.
recording.
And no, it's coming back. It's back.
I was gonna say that he's the opposite of Obama. Obama is this community activist, bottoms up, fighting for the people kind of a guy who became a professional politician. I think Newsom feels like a professional politician who's trying to masquerade as a community activist.
It's interesting. I covered one of the debates in the early stages where I actually had a chance to meet Obama and chat with him for a moment as he was running into the debate hall for prep. And I just he had this aura about him. I don't know how to explain that, but it even as a journalist at the time, he had this aura about him that made me go, I stopped. And I looked at him and I felt something. And I think that again, it goes
Was
down
it a
to
tingle
emotion.
up your leg?
It was it was, no, it was a tingle down my leg. I don't know.
I wasn't going to be one to say that.
I'm so glad that we got the recording back.
Yeah, perfect timing
But
for that to be recorded.
he was just, there was something about him that made me go, oh, this guy's got something. And we didn't know, nobody knew yet that he had what he had. Nobody knew it. But I'll
In
tell
that
you,
debate with Hillary, when he said, "Well, you're likable enough, Hillary," that was devastating. That was the election right there.
that's Steve's favorite.
Yeah, but didn't that cause him to lose New Hampshire?
He was authentic. That's
Yeah, it was just like, I got what he was saying. It wasn't mean, but it was really mean.
It was mean enough to make her start crying about something. I don't know what she was crying about though.
Well, we need a man like Al Haig. Do you remember that reference?
He's coming
I'm
in.
in
He's
charge
going to
here.
take. Yeah, I'm in charge here.
I am in control here in the White
I'm
House.
like, who the hell are you again? No, you're not. Get out of here, guy. You bother me.
hey, listen, this just reminds me that now the
Brent,
Comey
you're
rule.
talking to yourself? I mean, how are you having a senior moment?
Who?
Frank was talking.
No, well, Brent was talking. It's on tape.
I was doing my Al Haig.
Oh, there.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
was good. That was a good Al Haig.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
he
those
was
of us
really
who
good.
remember Al Haig, look. Speaking of streaming, now that the Comey rule is available everywhere, you all ought to watch it. It's absolutely spectacular and worth watching.
It's
Especially
happening in real time right now. You
what?
don't have to watch a movie. I mean, this whole thing with the memory leak is
Yeah.
Comey 2.0.
The guy who wrote that report must have watched it before.
That is exactly why I think I brought that up. And it's absolutely worth watching. And that guy who played the former guy, he's an Irish actor, I think. I can't remember his name. It's maybe Scottish. Unbelievably good and worth your time. So there you go.
I take that seriously.
Does Trump,
Okay,
Trump on SNL just the best though? I mean, oh my
yeah,
God.
the writing's kind of
I
weak.
love it.
I like the trick,
He's-
but
Hey, where's Melania? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
she's over there in the limo.
Yeah,
And
but
the other limo.
wasn't Trump giving what's his name, Nikki Haley's husband the business for not being around, and he's like serving?
He's deployed.
What the hell is that? Why aren't they getting on them for stuff like that?
And why didn't his people tell him?
And can you imagine I mean, it takes a lot to go out there, campaign. Her significant other is away. She doesn't
deployed.
get the support of that on a daily or weekly basis, I would imagine, in person. She has children, and she's like, she's doing it. I've got to give her credit for the
It was also kind of like when Pelosi's husband was banged with a hammer, and Trump's comments about that. I mean, these kinds of things just point at this human being as being something less than a human being, but it does not matter.
Yeah, he also likes his heroes not captured. If we remember that one,
It's not unlike Brent's Rams obsession. Brent, will do anything to support the Rams, and it doesn't matter what the Rams do; they're still good.
Well, that's why he said he was hoping that the Rams would win the Super Bowl tonight, even though they're not in the Super Bowl tonight.
As far as
are you guys done yet?
It'll be a heavy lift.
So, to the question, how can human beings be that delusional and ignore facts? I serve up Brent as my evidence.
Oh, poor guy. I don't. You know what, Brent? I feel for you, brother. I really do.
It's all football. It's all
Yeah.
football.
Who's
All
gonna
football.
win the game?
49ers.
Rams.
Kansas City.
The Rams.
Okay, raise your hand if you think it's the 49ers.
No.
You're saying if you think they're going to win or you want them to
Yeah,
win?
49. No, I'm saying what's going to happen. We have no idea, as a former member of the show insisted. I know we have no idea what's going to happen.
So I'm going to do the same I do with the Trump vote. The Chiefs are going to win, sadly.
By 7.
Okay, that's a good. So raise your hand if you think the 49ers are going to win.
Wow. No hands.
Ooh.
I think it's Kansas City's year.
Take that, Silicon Valley.
Hey, they've got Mahomes.
No, but now if you do the same vote, who do you want to win?
The Chiefs.
Rams.
49ers.
All right.
So you don't think they're going to win,
I'll
but
vote for the
that's
Rams.
who you want them to win.
Trailer.
Correct.
I want to see
Correct.
trailer as soon as the game is over.
All right,
I'll
Frank,
wake
let me
you up.
ask
Don't
you.
worry.
Who's
Thanks
gonna
to
watch?
everybody who showed up, and
I can't get my last
especially
Wait a minute. Brent was going to say.
I was going to ask who's going to watch just for the commercials at halftime, or whatever they do.
for
No,
the whole
I'm not gonna
commercials
watch
all
the
night. I wait until the next day when Ad H puts all the commercials together,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll post them on my newsletter. You can all watch them.
I'm hoping for a real good game, so that there are a lot of commercials, and then I'm going to watch them in real time.
What was the dollar amount for the 30-second or the
7
it
million.
was 8 million. It was
it's
8 million. It ended up at 8 million.
Wow, 8 million for a 30 seconds.
I think you can go to YouTube and see that this year's Super Bowl commercials right now.
And by the way, YouTube, the #1 television channel in America.
Yeah.
That's bogus.
Maybe the planet.
I don't care what Evan Shapiro says. That's
I care
bogus.
exactly what Evan Shapiro says. Thank
Okay,
you very
good.
much. Bye-bye.
So I'll raise my hand for everything else he says is on target, but that's wrong.
When is he going to be on? Is he going to be on something with you guys?
It's on Paramount.
Eventually when Frank, picks up the phone.
What?
What? He's asking whether Evan's going to be on the show.
I thought I heard something about that.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
See?
I saw him in person. I asked him. He said he'd like to do it. So,
Well, you're getting older, Frank, so we may have to replace you.
you know what? You know what?
I'm freezing up.
Action, Frank.
All right. I'm going to say it again. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Chow
Bye-bye.
mein, everybody. Everybody.